Waalaikumsalam. We started again, inshallah. I'm waiting for Shaykh Musab to request to be on live. Ustaz Zahid, apa khabar? I have the same problem, Ustaz Zahid, just malam. Tak boleh nak apa nama dia? Tak boleh nak accept the live request. Alright. Okay. Right now, currently. Okay, bismillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
How are you, Shaykh Musab?
Alhamdulillah. How are you, Sayyidi?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Thank you for agreeing to be in this session.
Alhamdulillah, it's an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah.
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 Connected, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. I got a few people drop by and ask the same question and again. When are you coming to the shores again, to Singapore?
Inshallah. We're gonna have to wait for the borders to open up first, inshallah. I hope they'll let me in.
Alhamdulillah. The physical borders are closed, but I think that the spiritual borders are open all the way. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. It is now 11, coming close to 11:30 to Singapore. What time is it there in Sweden?
So we're coming up to 5:30 now, p.m.
Alhamdulillah.
Slightly behind, a little bit behind you guys.
Alhamdulillah. So usually my daily live session with Asatiza, we got around 200 viewers. But tonight, I think the people, your muhibbin around the world is currently flooding my IG page tonight. Alhamdulillah. Yes, a lot of people are missing you. Alhamdulillah. Can you update us about what's happening? I suppose that you are an English in Manchester, but what's going on there in Sweden actually, right, currently?
Yeah. I actually noticed, mashallah, they had on the Ustaz on your Instagram page, you have my name and had a Swedish flag, which the Swedes here found very amusing. They got me citizenship.
Oh, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Firstly, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To you, Sayyidi, mashallah, Ustaz Zahid, it's an honor to be in your presence, and to all of the blessed people who are tuning in. Alhamdulillah, may Allah connect us and deepen our connection in this life and the barzakh and the akhirah. So alhamdulillah, things in Scandinavia, I've been in Sweden for over 3 months now. Came from Hadramaut, Karim, just in early January, and then just around a week before I was about to travel with my family back to Tarim, where we live. The whole, world kind of situation took place. I hesitate to call it a crisis, although, because that always infers something negative. And I think there are many challenges ahead for all of us collectively as an ummah, the ummah of humankind, and also specifically the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think there are many opportunities as well. And one of the things our Shaykh mentioned recently was the greater the test, the greater the openings that will come after that test. No. So may Allah make it a means for great openings for all of us, inshallah. The stance that they've taken here in Sweden is also fairly unique to most of the places around the globe. It's not one out of negligence, it's just a difference in the kind of the way that their medical experts and experts in the nature of how to deal with the pandemic have kind of, come into and understood these kind of things. But, we pray for lutf and gentleness for all of the ummah. These are testing times, but we pray it means for great openings, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. It is an honor to have you here tonight, and I before I go on live, I open a session, a drop box where people could actually drop their questions over there. We go there inshallah later on, but before we could start, there are alarming calls of people who is going to face Ramadan differently this year. Of course, I think it's not just a small issue. It's a pandemic. The whole global ummah is thriving, and there are a lot of changes, adaptation that needs to be made. And of course, it will be different. But on other part, some of our ulama is now talking about seclusions. Perhaps an uzla is good for the moment because of the situation whatsoever. Being a scholar, being a mashayikh, how do you pacify the Muslim community through this challenging time?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jazakumullah khair. I think there's so much to kind of meditate upon in that question. Just in beginning, to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never changes. And what it is, it's kind of like an awakening for many of us, just to kind of recenter, recalibrate, just come back to what's real. And because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unchanging, He is always Allah, He always was, always will be subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's an opportunity that's how we seek stability. So it's maybe a strange analogy, but if you imagine someone's going down on a shipwreck, which is pretty much a catastrophe, if someone's in the middle of an ocean, you're not going to grab onto the chandeliers. You're not going to grab onto the cutlery, the fine cutlery, the small things which are ultimately irrelevant. They don't make for the journey. They don't help you to get the journey. They're somewhat luxurious, but you're going to hold onto the biggest piece of wood you can find that's going to keep you afloat. And the nature of the deen in traversing through testing times, that's the nature of this world. There are always going to be testing times. And what we need to do is really just understand where we need to be heading towards until, the time when those currents change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, the one that created death and life, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, to test therein which one of you is best indeed. And I think a lot of it's really an opportunity for us to take it as how do we regain that which has maybe slipped away? How do we, move into this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? As opposed to just being fed, there's many opinions going around, there's many ideas going around. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us very practical advice, that stands the test of all times. I mean, we're in Northern Europe right now, in Scandinavia. We just came through this amazing winter where there was snow and, it was an incredible time. And now we're in spring, and one of the things about Northern Europe, there are these very stark changes in the seasons. Mm-hmm. Certain things, the nature of your core body temperature always has to stay the same, and the way to do that, maybe you have to change up a bit. You're all kind of springs, those times of change can be a difficult time. You don't really know how to dress. Do I wear the woolly jacket, or do I wear the thin jacket, or do I wear the scarf, or do I just, and I think this is a time of transition for many of us, many of our lives, just to kind of, go back to what's real, and we have Ramadan, this great educator coming up. And I think really that's what it's about. How do we approach Ramadan like never before? It's going to be a different Ramadan, but that's kind of the way of the people of Iman anyway. No Ramadan should ever be the same. It should be an opportunity to kind of go back to Allah like we've never done before. The scholars in Yemen, before they're about to pray, they often say, Sallu salat al-mawadda, pray a farewell
No.
prayer. Like if it was your final opportunity to reconnect with Allah, how would you take that opportunity? You know, and every Ramadan should be the same. Now, the nature of the circumstances are very different also. The nature of, obviously, we're often encouraged to spend time in the mosques, to spend time in the masajid, to spend time, obviously, particularly in Taraweeh, and that may be different, but what it really is, I feel, is like now honing in on where we're really at with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes you just got to go solo. You know, you got to go solo in life. And, you know, we have a big experience of this in Europe because we're, as Muslims, we're kind of new here. We're often in, you know, marginalized, in a minority kind of thing. So it's really between you and Allah. And, you know, we really pray that it's a means for opening for people.
MashaAllah. Again, there's a beautiful point where you said about going solo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe that during this time that every single people in the world are being pushed to being solo.
Yeah.
What can one benefit? Because I believe that in scholarly, in prophetic, in scholarly, the shuyukh, even the anbiya have go through this process of going solo.
Yeah.
So as a public, you know, how can we tell people about, you know, being positive about this whole ideas of going solo?
Yeah, mashallah, it's a good question. I think the idea of, you know, going solo doesn't mean to the neglect of other people or that we ignore other people. It's really just about understanding that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, we're not going to be quizzed about the person over here or the person over there. It's going to be about me with Allah. And, you know, that really impacts the way that we deal with other people as well. You know, if we are really working on the goal and that we place Allah in the center where, you know, where he is, subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we're going to be a lot more selfless. You know, we're going to be a lot more, you know, it's like this idea I said the other day about instead of like checking up on other people, we're going to be checking in. Checking up on people is what, you know, what happens when people are kind of, you know, they haven't really sorted themselves up, but to check in on people, see how people are doing, you know, and alhamdulillah, we have these opportunities. This is actually the first time I've ever done an Instagram live thing. I'm a bit of a Bedouin when it comes to these things. Kind of too long in the desert, but it's a great opportunity. So sometimes these things, they force us into, you know, just adapting. And as a species, you know, we're very used to doing that. And I think, you know, we can draw inspiration from the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There were times where, you know, why did he go solo, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Why did he go on his own? Because he went to seek Allah. It wasn't, you know, because he hated his society. It was actually out of deep care and love, you know. And what it is, it really goes back to the intention. And that's that great empowering reality which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَىٰ. You know, so we can be alone. You know, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. You know, the people of Allah, they really try and cultivate that state of being alone, to know that actually there's a deeper relationship that I can really tend to here. Now, and, you know, for many of us, we're forced into this right now.
Yeah.
And I think when it gets practical, it's things like having some kind of schedule and routine to one's day. You know, if we're at home or we're working from home, particularly in Ramadan, you have a period of time for allocating to work. You know, it's not it doesn't like hemorrhage throughout the day. You have a period of time for work, particularly in Ramadan. And then we have a period of time primarily in this month for connecting back to the Quran. You know, that's the, you know, when the people of Allah, they feel that loneliness, they seek their inspiration from the one that they're seeking, you know. And that's why they say if you want to speak to Allah, then engage in prayer. And if you want Allah to speak to you, then open up his book. You know, and there were some people that had such a profound connection to that reality, is that what would happen is they would fall unconscious, you know, through the reading of the book of Allah. They felt the one that was speaking to them. This isn't just some thing that was written down. This is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, it differs from every other book, every other revelation, in that it's not something that somebody had heard through something else. It was, you know, to the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So things like re-engaging with the Quran are really important, you know, because then you realize actually, you know, I thought I was going solo, I thought I was alone, but actually it was Allah all along that was sustaining me, was with me. You know, and this is what we really need to do. So when because the thing is, you know, most likely, you know, the real, we say in England, the proof is in the pudding. You know, what that means, you know, is when the real test comes after all of these things come away. You know, how have we managed to tend to that relationship? So, you know, I think setting down some real goals in Ramadan, literally writing them down, you know, practical stuff. What do I want to achieve this Ramadan? You know, Ramadan is an opportunity to, you know, lay down some intentions, lay down some spiritual practice that maybe we haven't had the opportunity to do even in previous Ramadans. You know, so we have some time with the Book of Allah, we have some time, they could have some time in contemplation as well. You know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the best contemplator. He would always reflect and contemplate, and it's a good opportunity to maybe just reprioritize what are our goals in life. So yeah, these are some practical things, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. I thought the proof is in the fish and chips, not the pudding.
No, the pudding comes after the fish and chips.
Alhamdulillah. Interestingly, about coming back and retreating and finding oneself during this time, because usually in Ramadan, the one who wants to get near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have the ability and segregate themselves from the busyness of their life. But the thing is that currently everyone were given this opportunity, rather than you want to see it positively or negatively. Any like simple 101 tips for those who are in the beginning of the journey, who wants reconnect back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are there any particular simple tips or advice that you could give? So that I believe, because currently I'm just updating you, we have people coming in from Perlis, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, Perth, Australia, and we got someone from Luton. I'm yet to see someone from Manchester. I don't know, maybe. And yeah, so currently, alhamdulillah, I believe there are some hikmah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put upon us. I tell you, it's not your first time. It is also our first time too here in Singapore, having to teach online.
MashaAllah, you're doing a wonderful job. Allah bless you, MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. So, and a lot of them see that this forced seclusion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put upon them contain a lot of hikmah. A lot of them has been asking, are there any simple step for us to reconnect back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? On your view, Sheikh?
MashaAllah. I mean, firstly, the month of of Ramadan was the month in which the Quran was revealed, and so it's really important that there's a spiritual atmosphere, there's a climate which Ramadan comes with. Ramadan is a spiritual season, and so part of accessing that is, and the etiquette and accessing that is kind of really re-engaging with the Quran. Now that can seem, you know, like, okay, re-engage with the Quran. Practically, what does that mean? Firstly, we start with the Fatiha. You know, we open with the opening. You know, we're reading that in our prayers, you know, how many times? Every single day. And I think it's just really important that we could just go through the Fatiha, contemplate on some of its meanings when we engage. And, you know, they say that you know, a lot of people, they're kind of concerned of maybe we're not getting as much out of our prayers as we should do. I'd say that was a really practical thing to do, you know, just to really think about what you're doing. That's the one thing. It's very simple. Just be a bit more mindful. You know, when you say Allahu Akbar, this isn't just something you're taught to say, so you ought to say, and it's kind of this very clunky, you know, detached experience. The salah is your sila. It's the connection. Like you're dialing up, you know. So when you go back into the prayer, really think about, simple. They say presence in the prayer is just that you're thinking about what you're saying when you're saying it. You know, if you're having a conversation with someone face to face and your heart's somewhere else, it's not going to have the same thing. It's not going to have the same effect. You know, so things like the Quran, the prayer, and starting with the Fatiha. When you read the Fatiha in the prayer, after saying Allahu Akbar, start to think, you know, what are the meanings? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Really to place and channel that gratitude when you're saying Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. You know, there are many people also that, you know, because we're kind of in it, you know, all humanity's united. They're all kind of this forced seclusion, if you like. But the way in which we approach it is very different. And as Muslims, we're really empowered. You know, so I think there's a lot of good things going on in the internet now, you know, with yourself, and mashallah, no doubt you have recommendations of people and opportunities, therefore, you know, so to really make the most out of those opportunities, increase in knowledge is a simple thing. You know, what I say practically, making your Ramadan kind of schedule, you know, a certain time every day. I'm going to have some kind of intake. Just as you have your breakfast in the morning, you know, I'm not going to say fish and chips, especially in Ramadan. We don't have fish and chips. I've never had fish and chips in Ramadan. Samosas maybe after you break your fast. But the soul is really thirsty in Ramadan, you know, and if we don't feed it, then that's when it starts to really starve, you know, because it's that time when the soul is, the whole climate is ready. It's the spring of the soul. It's ready to kind of re-engage. You know, so I think things like to contemplate upon the Quran, to start with the Fatiha, the shorter surahs towards the end. You know, the Quran is, it's oceans of meaning, and sometimes we can drown, you know, within that. But just to kind of really start to reflect upon that. So the Quran, the Salah, and also if we're in households where there's more than one person, just to kind of really be of assistance to other people. You know, just to be empathetic. There are other people going through that which we're going through, and sometimes much harder. You know, there are people that are really, really in difficulty right now, and we need to be a source of light, a source of care, a source of empathy to people. And I think to almost see this as a daily spiritual practice. You know, how have I cared for people in my day? You know, not to do it so we get a virtual pat on the back, whatever it is, we get a few more hearts drifting up the screen, or a thumbs up, but you know, we want those things from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, and to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think really just increasing understanding what Ramadan is. Ramadan comes as a welcome guest, and an opportunity to really see where we're at, you know, and the kind of the way that we do that is through the prayer. So make that as a start. This is a month where we, you know, we connect through prayer and we connect through fasting, you know, to be people of contemplation and to connect back to the Quran, inshallah.
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. I saw a brother commenting on our live. Manchester is here, so represented. I saw.
There's more than one of us. Oh man, you want to be careful.
I saw sister saying Birmingham, so Birmingham Sharif represent. Alhamdulillah. Not many people know that you guys have a special sauce that you go with fish and chips. I don't know what happened over there, but I got to give it to you because we are not the people of fish and chips. So, okay, we leave it to you. We leave it to you. Alhamdulillah. Beautiful, beautiful. We talk about retreating back to Al-Quran, reconnecting back to Al-Quran. There's a particular sentence that uses Salah was Sila. As-Salah, prayers are actually connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know, when you are talking to someone, it's quite rude for you to not focus on the one. So now just focus back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have that real connection in this time. Allow me to have a few minutes to see what people are commenting, inshallah. Because I did ask them about what do you think of this Ramadan, and this is one of them. He said that if you could take a look at this, he said that no more family gatherings, no more tarawih at the mosque, and Ramadan's while serving the country, because I believe these are the frontliners, because we have a lot of nurses, doctors are currently serving the community. Any shout outs for our Muslim nurses and doctors? Sheikh, yeah.
I mean, you know, I'd say that both to all of those people, you know, Muslim and those people of other faiths, you know, that it's a wonderful thing that they're doing, and our tradition, our religion really teaches us to honor that. And I think it's really important that whatever we can do, even if it's through prayer, that, you know, we pray for our Muslim brothers and sisters as you put it out in the front line. May Allah protect them and may Allah keep them safe. And the main thing also is all of these things is with intention. It's a good opportunity through every time a person does go out into the front line, and or serves those people that are in the front line in serving their communities, that they go out and on the way, you're in the car on the way to work, that you make a huge amount of intentions. And the way to do that is very simple. You just say, Allah, this is why I'm doing it. Our tradition, our religion is one of how. We have the how-to. The map is there in the Sunnah, but it's also why. Why are we doing this? To what means, to what ends? Just to, even if we don't quite fully understand, the depths and the intricacies of these things, we say it, we articulate it's for the sake of Allah, to enter happiness into the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a source of light. It's a means to help us in the akhirah, and get creative. That's the beauty with intentions. To really cultivate that space, inshallah. May Allah bless everyone. We feel very honored to be part of an ummah that has such people, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. A lot of I receive a lot of comments here asking for dua for nurses and doctors. I believe a lot of our brothers alive or joining us here, they are nurses, they are frontliners who are serving their community, and got one who said currently it's tiring, and I cannot imagine how it's going to be in Ramadan. So yeah, truly they are serving the community, and it's a little bit hard for them. And any motivational words for these people, these frontliners in achieving Ramadan, inshallah?
I think a lot of it, just to understand as human beings, we have ups and downs. You're not going to be necessarily on top of your game all of the time. But even those downs, in reality, there can be an opportunity to prepare to come back, full speed. We need times where we can just, gather our thoughts, gather our intentions. I think it's really important that people are aware that we don't, Allah is not doing this to kind of, it's not out of divine wrath, and the more that we cultivate that space, the more that we understand this, an opportunity for us to reconnect. It's interesting, and often we, in the modern world, we complain about not having the time to do very much. But now the time has literally you've been force-fed time. We've got so much time to do things, and it's really almost we've got too much time on our hands. The way they would do things traditionally in the Ummah everything would revolve around Ramadan. And although it's it's challenging times, it's difficult times, we need to be a source of motivation for people. So keep the goal in mind. A little goes a long way. There's nothing little about reading the Quran. There's nothing little about praying your 5 daily prayers, and really striving to be, present and thinking about what you're doing. I'm a convert to Islam, so I had to learn how to pray. It didn't come naturally. And sometimes the mind does drift, and that's just the nature of being human. But in that process of trying to realign, trying to center oneself, that's something that Allah loves, because you could just be hemorrhaging and going off in a whole host of different streams of consciousness. But the more that we try and focus, it's a great opportunity. I think also another thing is, don't dwell on those thoughts, because that's the time when the shaitan can really kind of work on a person. And the scholars have a difference of opinion. I thought the shayateen were locked up. Some of they say just the big ones. The little ones are still kind of pretty active. And there's also there's the remnants that are souls. If you get a machine going, it's constantly listening to the depleting words of the shaitan all year, then those kind of whisperings are still going to be there during Ramadan. So, what I'd say is an active thing is just, if anyone gets any negative thoughts, if they feel down, try and look at the source of those, but also nip it in the bud, exchange it. Allah does not want us to be unhappy people. We really need to seek the wisdom in this and contemplate and have a good opinion of Allah. That's what I mean by keeping our eyes on the goal. If it was someone else, the nature of the world is we have systems and we have governments and but behind all of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's all from Him. So I think, replace those thoughts, that could be negative and only go, serve to kind of be a source of demotivation. Replace it with salawat. Replace it with prayers upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And often this is a great way for these things to kind of not only go away, but to be replaced with beautiful things. It's like tending to a garden. Here in Northern Europe, we've got like daffodils and bluebells. We saw it the other day, all these interesting things. Whereas before the winter, there's no leaves on the trees, and it's very kind of desolate and bleak. But also what you get is weeds. And weeds can look nice. Some of them even have flowers, but typically you need to tend to them out so they strangulate the nutrition in the soil. So we need to be careful. These are like weeds in our minds. We've got to be careful to weed these things out. And the way to do it is just not to really allow these things, because sometimes you can catch yourself, especially if you're fasting. If you're fasting, it's a long day. You can just go off on a really weird, like go down the stream for like a good period of time. But you got to catch it. You got to redirect. So you're flowing in the right direction. The way to do that is just to make the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, realign one's intention, keep motivated. No doubt there'll be great blessings, in accordance to the difficulty. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to his beloved wife Aisha, "Jazauki ala qadri nasabuki." Like what you will get, what you are recompensed with, is all in accordance to the test. So with every test, so too come great openings, inshallah. And that's not just, for some people over there or a community over here. It's for you. Allah is addressing you. The fact that Allah has allowed you and me to experience this time, there's something in it, and we need to rejoice in that and always try and, put our stream of consciousness into one of positivity. That's the way of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Interesting. Jazauki ala qadri nasabuki. MashaAllah. So that's an interesting point made up by yourself. And I was talking about time few days ago about how we are currently people like Singapore, I think Europe, whatsoever. We're talking about we don't have a lot of time. Time is challenging. There's nothing enough. But I still remember I was in Tarim a few years ago. I believe what happened in Tarim is that when a Singaporean goes to Tarim, and then suddenly you are thinking that why we are forced into seclusion. People are literally timeless, but people are filling up their times with awrat. People are filling up their times with amal, with classes, with daras, with durus and whatsoever. So this may be a challenge for us here because of the situation of our life, but yes, adaptation is important for everyone. Yes, alhamdulillah. I got one message.
To adapt
in
the best way. And the thing is, I totally agree. It's very difficult in any situation. Just being human, it's pretty hard to adapt to new things, no matter where you are in the world, because we all have the same egos, have the same heart, and a part of it is just keeping real and embracing that. وَمَن يُجَاهِدُ فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those that strive in our way, if you strive for Allah, Allah will guide you. Subula, to our pathways. There'll be things that Allah will guide you to that maybe they're not quantifiable. They don't have a shape. They don't have a form. They can't be seen. But Allah knows how to guide people, and He'll open things up to people, no doubt, in this Ramadan if we have a good estimation of Him. And part of it is just relearning, a different worldview, an opportunity to see how the Prophet ﷺ viewed things. And instead of being like closed in and boxed in, a very small understanding of our lives, how can we re-engage with our own selves, and monitor our interaction, our behavior towards other people. Ramadan is always, this is the thing which is unchanging about Ramadan. It's an opportunity to be people of taqwa. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. That's the reason for the divine prescription, that perhaps you might gain this taqwa, which is a profound state of the heart, of the soul. And the people of taqwa, how many times does Allah praise them in the Quran? These are the people of Allah, they're His elect people, and it's almost like a forced training to become people of taqwa, the entire ummah to come back to taqwa, to be conscious of Allah, to be aware of Allah. There's an amazing story, as many of you will have heard, of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, which was known for his absolute generosity. He was never eat alone. You know, one time he, you know, he was eating alone, and he just grabbed some guy out, you know, on the street from his, you know, his house, his home. And, you know, the man started eating. Halfway through the food, you know, Sayyidina Ibrahim says, Bismillah. And the man names, you know, mentions one of the names of his idols, Ibrahim, because he's, you know, he's like the, you know, the father of Tawheed. You know, he's, you know, I thought you're a believer. Get out the house. You know, and then the man runs away, and then Allah reveals to Sayyidina Ibrahim. You know, he says, I've been giving him food, drink, sustenance his whole life. You know, and you can't feed him for one meal. You know, and you already lose patience with him. And so Ibrahim, because you know, he runs up to the man, and he says, forgive me. This is what was inspired to me. You know, and the man says, Allah said this. Allah revealed this to you, and you're a prophet of God. He said, yeah. And he said, then this must be true. And he actually enters into the fold of Tawheed and belief. You know, so always to know that in all of those times when we've not cultivated that space, when we've been absent-minded, you know, we've not thought about Allah. Allah's never neglected us. There's never been a time when the oxygen has gone down. There's never been a time when we don't get what we want. You know, often we live in absolute luxury. You know, it's just to be people of recognition of that blessing. You know, so to root those things in the Sunnah. If we're in our homes, to really give life to our homes, to be people that our homes now become like masajid, you know, places of dhikr. We should really spend time with our family members, our spouses, our children, to have a daily, you know, portion of group dhikr when we're all together, to learn the Quran together. You know, I was doing that this morning, you know, with my family. We had an opportunity just to go through the Quran together. You know, one of the things the Shaykh actually mentioned, and this was, you know, even when it's not an imposed, you know, so-called imposed lockdown, you know, the Shaykh and the Salihin and Tareem, they would have a specific wird of Quran with their spouses, you know, in order, you know, outside of their own tartib, their own kind of program. So what that would do is to give people an opportunity, their hearts to be bound, you know, through the Quran. You actually, you know, with one's spouse, you start to, you know, one's children have a circle of Quran, and you do this as a daily practice. And what this does is you know, your hearts are bound by the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it means for really repairing a lot of torn relationships, or, you know, the nature of any relationship is there's often strains, and sometimes it's, you know, when we feel cooped up all in the same space, that's the only way to get rid of it. Just, you know, connect back to Allah through His word subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, you know, these are some, like, you know, tips. Inshallah, I pray that Ramadan is going to be interesting times. A different Ramadan will be interesting times. One of the difficult things about Ramadan is it's like placing a mirror directly at your own face after you've been asleep for a couple of years. That's not me. You know, so typically blaming everyone else. You know, and when people become most introspective when they're hungry. You know, the adab of the Muslims is slipped. Nobody in my household respects me, but really, actually, it's just saying more about our own self. So it's just to kind of catch that before it becomes something which, you know, which is spiritually detrimental, and just say, okay, like, Allah's showing me these things about my own self. Maybe I do need to recognize these triggers, you know, and the way to deal with these triggers is to flee back to Allah. That was the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If there's any affair that ever concerned him, he would flee to the prayer. If we don't have the opportunity to flee to the prayer all the time, flee to the dhikr of Allah, flee to salawat, fafirru ila Allah, and just flee to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an opportunity, you know. Allah says in the Quran, فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ, where else are you going to go? I mean, literally, we're on lockdown. Where else are you going to run? You know, because we're faced with our egos. We're within four walls. We're boxed in. We've got to go back to Allah. So I think a lot of the time, whilst physically we may feel slightly locked in reality, there's a deepening which is taking place, a deepening to the roots which we can lay down in Ramadan. The Salaf in Tareem, the great our spiritual ancestors, is they would often say that they would use Ramadan as an opportunity to root down intentions. So like literally to have a wird, a daily spiritual practice where you are thinking about, okay, what can I do for the year ahead? And write these down, because the nature of the nafs is tricky. So it's going to get, you know, come Eid, it's all back to normal. And if there's no lockdown, let's just, you know, go back to normal. But write them down, take oneself into account. What intentions can I make for the year ahead on a daily level. And what this will do is it really make you think, man, this Ramadan is a great opportunity for me to do this, because they say if you root an intention in the time of that spiritual season, great fruits start to emerge. So the Salaf would typically, they would root intentions, they would write down intentions, such as, okay, in Ramadan, I'm going to try and learn how to read the Quran with better tajweed. I'm going to learn more about what the Quran is actually telling me. I'm going to start to attend the many gatherings which are actually on offer to me that I never really knew about or really paid attention to. I'm going to nourish myself. So is that going to stop and Eid? No, I'm going to write it down, take myself into account so it continues on after Eid. Now, if a person, they say if they root these things in the month of Ramadan, what starts to take place is because of the spiritual potency of the season, of the month, then it leads to great openings throughout the rest of the year.
Wow.
That's why they say to the same meaning, the one that makes, literally opens up for themselves a righteous intention, an intention that's pleasing to Allah. Allah opens up to that person 70 doors of tawfiq. So you just see things open up to you. There's all of a sudden there's someone offering, tafsir classes, or there's just amazing things will start to open up to you, and then you link it back to Allah. It's a sign of Allah guiding a person. It's always recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and give thanks to Him.
MashaAllah. There's an interesting practices that the Salihin do, which you are sharing to our viewers today. That a lot of the ulama and Salihin, they actually planted their intention because of the spiritual potency and the possibility of it growing further and positively. So mashallah. So like you said, it's not an issue of being locked up, but issue of having this ego locked up in these four walls.
I mean, we all need a bit. The shayateen are taking care of. We all just need a bit more help with our egos.
Yeah, mashallah. Because around here in Singapore, you know what the Singaporeans are saying. They are saying that the sulsilati shayateen in Ramadan.
Yeah.
But the humans are sulsilat before Ramadan.
yeah. We've been locked up. Yeah.
Okay, mashallah, barakallah fiqh. It's an interesting. Thank you so much for your kind words. Your being
I know
here.
It's late with you guys there. As you can see, we've still got the sun here in Scandinavia, but mashallah, may Allah bless you for arranging
Alhamdulillah.
this and for joining in, inshallah. It's been really nice to connect.
Alhamdulillah. Should I request from you to have a last piece of advice for the whole community, because I think our life currently is being not just heard by the Singaporeans, by everyone in the world, as a community coming together, facing this different Ramadan. Any particular things that we should observe, and how we should react during this time?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think the nature of this Ramadan is, part of it is that there's so much which is unknown, and in that we should embrace. And what I mean by that is, whilst we don't know what's going to happen, we know that it's unknown. Most of us have never experienced a Ramadan quite like this ever before. And some of the kind of spiritual masters will often train their students to almost become acquainted and get used to the unknown. So you can deal with any situation. And I think this Ramadan, we have to anticipate, not necessarily from what we've been used to, but to learn to really connect back to Allah and anticipate from Him. Ramadan is really an opportunity to gain some self-control, and to have certain things unlocked for us deep within. And that's by taking simple, practical techniques, which the Prophet ﷺ taught us. To really watch one's character. It's one of the biggest signs of that one's Ramadan is being accepted. If we're just getting grumpy because we're starving ourselves, it's not going to be pleasant for us or anyone else, which is surviving the lockdown in the same room, same four walls as you. And what we have to do is just be aware that we're all being held into account from everything that we do, every movement, every word, every intention, and, you know, just redirect, you know, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think because of the nature of the circumstances, there's a great potential and an opportunity for us all to really just think about what our priorities are in life in general. You know, and I think the imminency of death, you know, this is something which in the modern world we're really frightened about embracing, because we build physical and figurative edifices, buildings to protect us. That death isn't something which happens to us; it happens to other people. You know, but we're all dying, and whilst that can be a very sobering thing, it's also something which the Prophet taught us, because death in our tradition is not an ending; it's a transition. You know, and the Prophet ﷺ was the most mindful of all humanity, and in his practice we can learn how to transition in the best way. You know, thinking about death and the imminency of, you know, of these things, actually they should be a means to center us. You know, what of those things that we wish we could have done before the so-called lockdown? What are those things that those ambitions? You know, I'm not just talking about like skydiving or bungee jumping. I'm talking about things like, you know, maybe all of those lessons that I missed that I could have re-engaged with the Quran. All of those times I could have learned a bit more about my prayer. All of those times I could have asked that question and was frightened too. Really, we're starting to mimic some of the states of the people of Allah, who every engagement, they're really mindful of death. This might be my last day on earth. It might be my last prayer. It might be my last Ramadan. And in doing this, what starts to happen is we really start to sober up. And because we sober up, we start to see things a bit more clearly. You know, we become detoxified from the intoxication of the dunya, and we start to like really deepen a relationship. And I think in essence, as we said, Ramadan, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ. It's just for a few days. I mean, literally, you know, no sooner Ramadan will come other than it will go. You know, and that will be an opportunity just to really think about, this is the nature of the world. We're transitioning. We're moving from one space to the next. It's night and day, and then year after year after year. You know, it was maybe over a year ago since we last, you know, touched base. I mean, alhamdulillah, as you said, the hearts are no doubt connected, but, you know, that's just the nature of the world. Time is fleeting, you know, just to be really mindful, and simple steps. That would be the basic advice, you know, just do what you can, you know, and write those things down. You know, if someone's going to start a business, they're going to write down what they're buying and selling, their capital at the end. They're not just going to leave the figures just, you know, to the, you know, inshallah, we'll work it out. You know, we've got to take care of this word, inshallah. This is a sacred word. You know, we've got to really mean it. When we say inshallah, it's with azima, with real results. So, you know, I think in this last week, you know, before Ramadan, start writing those intentions down, inshallah. It's advice to my own self as well. You know, starting what can we do this Ramadan to make it a real different Ramadan? You know, the nature of things, it's going to be different for different people. You know, Allah's not going to judge us all and account us all the same. You know, for those people that really want to reconnect, they're going to have a different taste in Ramadan to those people that are kind of, you know, not really interested. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just giving, you know, in every night in Ramadan. You know, there was a beautiful saying from one of the great masters of our tradition, Imam Junaid. You know, when people asked, like, if there is a test from Allah, how do we view it? Is it a punishment from Allah? You know, and he said, it goes back down to a person's individual state. And he said, it's a punishment from Allah if you just feel angry all the time. Like if this lockdown, this is just, and you just feel frustrated and angry all the time. That's actually, it's to do with the way the divine anger reflects through the human being. May Allah protect us all, and, you know, not give us this state. But if we feel anger, if we feel frustration, just to quickly move away from astaghfirullah and to go back, you know, to what's real. And then he said, you know, if a person's patient, you know, if you're patient with a test, this is actually a sign that there's a kafara taking place, that Allah is wiping away someone's sins. Now, there's a spiritual state which we can all try and at least aspire towards by being connected to, you know, the likes, mashallah, of yourself. You're a great blessing in Singapore. We wish, we had the likes of yourself here in Europe. You know, Singapore is a blessed land, alhamdulillah, filled with asceticism, filled with, sincere seekers, and I think this is a great opportunity. We should really have a lot of himmah. We shouldn't be, don't just seek to be the lowest common denominator. And the thing is, it's not what we do, it's Allah. Have a good opinion of Allah in this Ramadan. So he concludes by saying, if a person feels rida, which is that you're content. Okay, they're difficult times, but I trust in Allah. I know that all of this is with a wisdom. And not only I'm just going to put up with it, I'm going to tolerate the situation, be patient. I'm actually going to start to embrace it. How can I use this as a means and a channel back to reconnect? This is rida, to be in a state of actual, to be pleased with the situation. And sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. That's the nature of spirituality. It's more on the patience type vibe right now. But if we just say no, but think about why, and all the opportunities which have been given to us. And then Imam Junaid said, if you find this state within yourself, that you're in a state of rida, of just contentment, at ease, this is all from Allah. This is a sign of irtiqa. So Allah is actually raising you spiritually and bringing you close to Him. So may Allah connect us to those people that are always in that state and allow us to taste of that reality.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallah fiqh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you always, inshallah. Please make dua for us over here and everywhere in the world. We pray that we meet you again, inshallah, in Singapore, in everywhere. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you safe and your family and everyone there, inshallah. Surely with the hikmah of COVID, we meet here. And of course, because of this lockdown, I believe that tonight we have around 2,000 people following us all over the world. Alhamdulillah, it benefits us a lot. I myself fill out my notes, papers and everything. Before you ask me to write, I already start writing, inshallah. And hopefully
this is an opportunity for, these exchanges. It's وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Those that mutually remind themselves of truth and of patience. And this is the great teaching of the Quran. As you know, Ustaz, Imam Shafi'i, he said, with this to be the only verse to be revealed in the Quran, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. With this to be the only verse to be revealed, then it would have sufficed. And I think this is a great blessing. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-ibada fil haraj kal-hijra ilayya.
MashaAllah.
Worship, trying to get close to Allah, trying to devote, when there's tons of distraction, when there's lots of things which are unsettling people, but just trying to, keep one's sight on the goal. Al-ibadah, worship in a time of haraj, of difficulty, kal-hijra ilayya. The Prophet ﷺ said, it's like migrating or traveling to me. So every time we push, every time we try and strive, we should really try and think, who are we? Who do we want to be in the company of? And who do we want to be in the company of? Inshallah, bi'ithnillah, for all eternity.
Thank you.
The Prophet says to him, he's got the backs of these ummah. He's looking out for us. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. It's heavy upon him, which is before him. So. Alhamdulillah for those connections.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much. I would like to thank you from everyone's been here tonight. May Allah SWT keep us everyone safe, and yourself and the community over there. Send salam to everyone in your community. And inshallah, if Allah SWT permits, let's go maybe one more time, if Allah SWT permits us, see how you grow over there. If you got any Scandinavian diets allows you to expand.
They have,
inshallah.
In Scandinavia, they have a thing called fika in Sweden. What that is, it's just all it is an excuse just to drink coffee and eat cake. They made it into a cultural thing, but it's just an excuse to eat, which I love. Yeah, it's a cultural thing which yeah, we all need to get into, inshallah. The
Inshallah.
Singaporeans can join in, inshallah.
Inshallah.
The
See you
Singaporean
again.
speaker, inshallah.
See you again, Sidi, inshallah. And may
Inshallah.
Allah SWT
Jazakallah.
bless you. Barakallah fiqh. Shukran. Thank you so much, everyone. I end the session, inshallah. Baik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.